Etapu, assalamu alaikum, namaste, nefer. This is Kasakma Keperu, or how some people call me, Brother Q, here with another exciting video for you. In this video, we're going to deal with the subject of, you asked for it, the rebirth process. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video, hit that like button. And if it's your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications so when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, I do have free ebooks for you. So if you're interested in taking your esoteric knowledge to the next level, scroll down, click on the links below, and download your ebook and start reading it today. And if you're not already a supporter of ours on Patreon, what are you waiting for? You can do so for as low as $1, $5, or $20 a month. It's up to you. You can cancel at any time. You'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, videos which will teach you how to meditate, how to summon spirits, how to do qigong, how to work with the oracles, how to do self-hypnosis, and so much more. So become a Patreon supporter. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. So I'm here enjoying my protein drink. I want to tell you something. You will find that the majority of people that you deal with are programs. They are not individuals that have an understanding of this kind of stuff that we talk about on this channel. They just will not get it. So if you are looking to have a deep conversation about these principles to them, forget it. And this specifically comes when you're dealing with Black men in the Black community. They have been programmed and bred to act and to think a certain way. And so as Black women. So you will not find that your conversations about some of these topics will go far with them. And I'm not talking about Black women and men in general. I'm just saying there's just a certain segment of society that, well, I hate to use the term sheep, but they are programmed and bred to think a very myopic and narrow-minded way. And they're not open to expansiveness, you know? So it's going to be very difficult to have conversations with them. And so you have a clear understanding of where I am coming from. You know, you will have certain individuals from the Black community who have been programmed, and they are just as much as racist as your KKK, will say, why aren't you dating a Black woman? Or why aren't you dating a Black man? You know, and they, instead of looking at the content of someone's character and also understanding, which is on a very, very deeper level, that you are reborn, you incarnate into this existence with a mate that is for you. And if you're doing things right from a spiritual perspective, you will go to the oracle before courting the individual and marrying the individual, and let the oracle sanction the relationship. And to your surprise, that may not be a person of your same ethnicity, heritage, background, whatever you want to call it. But we don't clearly understand that. We just think because a person looks good, we hook up with them. So these are high concepts that people don't get. So when I say, you know, the first reading I went to the oracle and I said, well, should I, you know, pick a mate who's of my same background, right? Or nationality, whatever you want to call it, race. And the oracle gave me Oser Hetep. And I'm like, oh, that was interesting. And Oser Hetep is, as you know, he is the mummy. He is the beyond the influence of emotion. He is God on earth. And Oser tells you not to have any preferences. He tells you that you must be impartial. You must not let emotions sway your judgment. And I was like, wow, that's deep reading. Very, very deep. Now, you must understand that when you incarnate into this existence, you come through a certain family line, and you come through a certain line where there's, you know, a color line or a nationality. And not nationality. Let me see. Let me say it proper. You come through. I don't want to use the word race because that's not even a legitimate word, but we will, just to facilitate this conversation, we'll say race. Okay. Some people are born biracial. Some people come into this existence not meant to get somebody with their own ethnic background. So, but you have people who are so myopic in their viewpoint, they don't really understand this. And this goes for white people as well. And God may have someone in store for you that you need to change your perspective and to give you a broader understanding of culture. So we need to honor that and understand that we shouldn't be catering to the lower half of our animal spirit, the Sahu nature, by just picking a mate and picking friends based on if our friends have belief systems that directly align with us. Yes, that's a good idea, but what does the Oracle say about your friends? Are they true friends? What does the Oracle say about your mate? The Oracle say you should get together with that person. One thing you have to keep in mind is that, and we tend to forget this, when we look at our lives and we're saying, why me? Why am I going through this? Why do I deal with this? Like people are saying, like, oh, well, why was I born black to go through all these trials and tribulations in this evil and corrupt white world? One of the things you have to keep in mind is that you picked it. Most of the things that you are dealing with or you're going through and who you are, you picked it. You made the agreement that this is what you would do. This is how you would incarnate. This is part of Sekert, destiny. So asking the question, why me? Why do I have to go through this is incorrect. You should be asking, why did my higher self choose this? What lesson am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to get out of all of this? When you ask those questions, then you are on the right track to higher consciousness, higher realization of a greater purpose. You're not in a stupor state. They think that because you see a people or a couple that are mixed race, ooh, why is she with that white person? You're too dumb to understand that there are certain soul agreements, soul contracts, soul mates, twin flames, whatever you want to call it, that find their way again in this lifetime. And they're not necessarily from the same race. That's important to understand. And if you are part of the enlightened, of higher consciousness, and I don't want to say woke because that term has been so vandalized. People claiming to be woke aren't really woke. But if you're a part of the higher enlightened individuals, then you will look at things from a higher perspective, as in the 20th hexagram of the I-ching. 20th hexagram of the I-ching is a tower where you are on top of the tower. You get a bird's eye view of everything, but yet also you can be seen. So your conduct comes into question. People can see what you are about. You understand? Now, as I said, when we incarnate, or we're reborn, we pre-select these things we'll go through. We select our mates. We'll say, I'll get into an arrangement with a mate that will abuse me, so I will understand what the abuse process is about and how not to be a victim. You're born into a world, one among many infinite possibilities, where there's racism. Now, people ask, well, why is there corruption? Why is this world racist? Again, that's the wrong question you're asking. Why did you choose among the infinite number of parallel realities? Why did you choose one where there would be racism? You could have chosen one where there'd be harmony. You could have chosen one where there would be no racism, but you didn't, did you? So that's the real question. And to understand this reincarnation and destiny thing a little bit more, you see, even though you may pick these things and incarnate to be a dark chocolate person, a pale white vanilla person, a biracial yellow person, you pick that. and then you also accept everything that comes with it. Dark chocolate person, you're going to be persecuted. You're not going to be looked at society as beautiful, you know. But you wanted to experience that. Now, this holds true for an entire group or an entire race. You see, then we ask the question, well, why are African Americans, or say Black people or people of color on the planet, still oppressed? Why are they oppressed? Well, you must understand that that oppression in some way, shape, or form is serving them. Because Nebuchadnezzar wants to experience everything, and that information on the experience gets uploaded to the Oversoul and eventually to the Akashic records. That information doesn't die. We know from studying black holes and singularities that information and things are never destroyed or discarded in the universe. They are stored. So the learning process and the understanding gets stored. And that therapy has a great understanding of itself through the experience. So if something is serving you, it's going to be there because it's part of that process. If it no longer serves us in some way, shape, or form to be victims of racism, then racism will disappear. And there is a reality where there is no racism. Now, can you vibrationally shift? Because, that's what I'm all about. I teach that, about creating your own reality. If you don't like this reality, shift to a planet where there's a new reality. Can you move from this reality to one where there is no racism? Well, that's a question of violating your own agreement with yourself. You said to yourself, I agree to experience racism so that it can further me. And your higher self agreed to that. So you incarnate into this existence where there's racism, and then you went out. It's not gonna, no, you can't. You made the agreement. You can't go against your own agreement. You can't break your own agreement. You're not going to do that. So you will experience it, but you will become awakened to your power to know that you do not have to feel the 100% effects of it, that you are a God and you could temper the impact of it, that you could change the fabric of reality so that it doesn't affect you as much. But you're going to still have to go through it. Can you change your color? No, you agreed to that. You said, I want to be yellow. I want to be dark. I want to be brown. I want to be white. You can't. You agreed to that so that you are a vessel for God to experience what it's like to be a white person in a racist world and to see what you would do when confronted with injustice. That's what God wants to experience. And if you choose to be unjust and to treat people of color harshly and wrong, well, God wants to experience that too. What is it like to be a white person that treats other people of color with disrespects and demoralizes them? God wants to experience that. But then you say, but that's wrong. That's wrong. And Brother Q, there's a thing called Ma'at. There's truth, justice, and righteousness. Yes, you're right. But above Ma'at is Sekert, destiny, cycles, order, a place for everything in its place. What this means is that you have to understand that what you think is evil and wrong, you're assigning a quality to it. You're violating the tenets of Tahuti. Nothing has a quality in and of itself. So even though someone has wronged you and you have a legitimate claim before Harukahuti, you go to Harukahuti and say, hey, cut their heads off. I'm a legitimate victim. I deserve justice. And Harukahuti says, you're right. You're a victim. But There's a higher calling here. There's an experience that you need to go through, that you agreed to go through. So you're not a victim. You are consciousness experiencing itself, getting to know itself. And in meeting that challenge, you awaken your spiritual power to overcome it. That's the key. Your concept is right, wrong, is so 4D, fourth dimensional. When you get into 5D, there is none of that. There's only the experience of all things that you agree to. When you get into 5D, you say, yes, this person did me wrong, but I did agree to this experience, so therefore that person is helping me. So therefore I cannot label this experience as a bad experience. I can only label it as an experience. Now, don't get it twisted. While you're in 4D, you must help God understand what punishment is about. So you must seek justice. You must seek to punish the wrongdoer. Don't just accept it. But you must also understand that there is limitations in this world. And if you cannot get justice from a corrupt judicial system, then you're going to have to turn to spiritual means and spiritual powers to get justice. That is what it's for. So therefore, the injustice serves you. And that is why it's here. But the emotional aspect of us, the Sahu, gets so emotional over things. And we just go, it's not right. It's wrong. I feel hurt. I feel victimized. It's all wrong. Yes. Yes, it is wrong. But how are you going to meet that challenge, though, is the question. Are you going to meet it as a god or a Sahu animal who cries about it? A challenge comes, you say, okay, I'm going to get my mantra, I'm going to get these herbs out and these candles, I'm going to do a ritual and deal with this situation. That's how you're supposed to deal with it. If you have no physical means to overcome the obstruction. That's how gods react to things. A god will see a couple and say, well, they have been in a pre-life relationship, and this life they're just continuing that relationship. So it looks to us like a what do you call biracial relationship or a mixed relationship or interracial relationship. Really is them playing out their destinies together, or or following up on a past life experience. But you have the deaf, dumb, and blind that can't see these things. They don't understand these higher concepts. And if you're not choosing your mate based on the oracles, then shame on you. Shame on you. You must understand something. And let me make this clear, because I don't want to leave this broadcast without this being very clear. Something just caught my attention on the chat box there. Let me just say, Valentina, so what do you think about abortion? What I think is irrelevant. That's a left brain thing. That's what gets you into trouble thinking. That's Sebek. Sebek does not know right and wrong. Sebek does not know truth. Sebek is not the measure of morality. So you asking me to use an aspect of my brain that cannot determine what truth is. It's incapable of understanding truth, which is why you have racism. You see, the masses of white people on the planet are left brain. Left brain is segregated thought process. Left brain gives rise to racism and sexism. They don't understand how to think otherwise, because that's how they're built. And I'm not assigning a quality to it. I'm saying when you're polarized in left brain thinking and all you do is think, it's like if you have a hammer, everything you see is a nail. You don't understand that you have an arsenal of different tools. So if we want to know, hey, is abortion right or wrong? Well, then we got to go to the oracle. We got to ask God. We got to stop thinking, shut down the thought process, and go to the Most High and say, God, through oracle, is abortion right or wrong? And then he will let you know. So start there, and you'll get the answer to your question. That is important. You see, it's very hard for us. We're so trained in this Western world, this backwards Western world. We've elevated the left brain and the thinking process so high that we think it can solve problems. No, 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 no. The left brain has caused so many problems in this world. Where Haru, the king, should be sitting at the throne, you have Sebek. And you have to say, Sebek, you're not meant to be at the throne. You're not meant to be ruler. That's Haru. Haru is circumspection. So we walk around trying to parrot their way of thinking, trying to be more left brain than they are, when we're really right brain. We're right brain people, integrated brain thinkers. That's why our civilizations, Kemet, Egypt, Atlantis, were civilizations of high morality. Morality was first and foremost. This is why we had the goddess Ma'at. And in their culture, they had all these crazy gods. Zeus would eat people, and the Romans would throw people to the lions. There's no morality there. The Greek and Roman, the Senate would get caught up in endless debates, verbal discussions. We never come to the conclusion on something because they keep debating. That's an attribute of the left brain. It likes to debate. It likes to talk too damn much. It can't shut up. But when you operate from the right brain and get in contact with God's wisdom, the Akashic records, you have to shut down the left brain. The left brain has to stop thinking. So the right brain, the connection to Tahuti, becomes activated. So asking me what I think, that's a recipe for trouble. I think because I don't know. You get it? I think because I don't know. Tahuti is knowing. Tahuti is knowledge. Tahuti is wisdom. Sebek is information. Sebek is left brain. Sebek just can become informed about something. Sebek can't invent anything new. Sebek can parrot information. So let's keep that in mind. So I hope that answers your question. And let me go back to the subject matter here. So I want us to understand that we can transcend the things that we're going through if they no longer serve us. But we must at some time deal with the shadow self, those things that are trapped in our subconscious, which cause us to get caught up in the recycle or rebirth process. If we don't deal with the shadow self and integrate, we will forever be reincarnated and reincarnated and reincarnated. And those very things caught in the shadow self are our fears, our worries, our nightmares. And those emotional hangups dictate the next life. And you have to be very careful of that, because you don't want to be experiencing your headaches or hangups in the next life over and over again. So if best is possible, you see, a true society that was based on spiritual culture, based on morality, would recognize and honor the aspect of the shadow self. It would say, listen here, We understand that there's this subliminal things that you can't see that are being programmed into your mind and it being collected, and that's forming what we call the shadow self. And it's so deeply buried in your subconsciousness, you don't even realize it's there. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to limit how far you can go in terms of your spiritual power. But the society knows there is a shadow self. The Illuminati knows there is a shadow self, but they want it there. They thirst for it. They want you to have that shadow self and not have integration, because they want you to keep being reborn to service them. They don't want sages here. They don't want people who are of higher consciousness awakening the masses of people. They don't want that. They need servants. So they have to keep you trapped in the animal spirit. Sahu. Keep in mind your options of things that you choose to experience. See, Haru is when you fully develop into your authority, your ability to exercise your will. Therefore, you can say, I will this to be. I will this experience to be. And this experience, that's when you really take control and you can decide who you want to be. Unfortunately, in this world, they don't give you a map or a guide to spiritual development. I mean, we do have it, but they keep it away from the masses. So the point I wanted to make about the masses, I want you to understand, this is very key before I leave, is this. You and most people have been bred like in a breeding farm. You have been bred to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to think a certain way. I was talking to someone and they could not understand the idea of two individuals living a past life as lovers and coming and reincarnating and finding each other again and continuing that relationship. They couldn't understand that. And they couldn't understand the concept that once you get into 5D, you're not dealing with right and wrong anymore. So finally, I had to shut the conversation down. And I said to him, I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You are not made to understand this. Notice what I said. I said, you are not made to understand this. You see, through the breeding process, the process of genetic engineering, through influencing women what type of men they should want, which is the wrong type, copulating with them, giving birth, and wash, rinse, and repeat that cycle. You breed out certain qualities: independent thought, freedom, connection to higher source. You breed that out. And therefore, when you sit and you try to explain high concepts to people, they can't process it. They're not made to process it. It would take an extreme amount of work for them to get it. And it's not about them awakening or being woke. They will never get it. They will never understand it. You're fighting a losing battle with them. They're not made that way. But you are, which is why you're listening here, which is why you're hearing me. You are. Because somewhere through the breeding process, you kept your connection to source, to higher consciousness, so that when truth came along, you heard it and you got it. You put the pieces of the puzzle together and you got it. So I want you to understand that's a real thing. We are bred to be sheep, to be cattle. And some of us break through that process and become outliers. We don't need a pill. We don't need red pill, blue pill. It's already in us. We're made to understand the matrix. We're made to understand higher knowledge, where most people aren't. Not everyone will be saved. Okay, who said they're supposed to be saved? Who said they're supposed to be saved? How could you write a script where a plane crashes and people die and say, oh, wow, maybe we could save them? No, you need that to happen. That's the catalyst. That's the catalyst for the story. There are people that are not supposed to be saved. They're supposed to be lost and victimized. They're supposed to be that. That's their role in this space-time continuum. They are serving that function of being the sheeple. They have to be that way. You're not supposed to save them. In this reality, one among many of realities, there has to be the villain. There has to be the villain. There has to be the obstruction, as Seckert would say. No obstruction, no spiritual power. Without the obstruction pushing against you, you could never awaken to a higher knowledge and awaken your spiritual power. If the global elite, the cabal, wasn't there, you would never come into the realization of what it is to be Alsair. You would never. So it serves you. You're not to be concerned with saving people. You're supposed to be concerned with becoming Alsair. That's your prime directive. And two, fulfilling your destiny. Remember that thing you made, the agreement with God, you're going to help God experience the theme of your life? That's what you're supposed to be playing out and experiencing that. You didn't come into this world with the agreement. All right. Ra, Seckert, Michael, Valentina, Mina, we need you to save as many people as possible. Can you do that? No. What is that supposed? No, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to become Alsair. You're supposed to live your destiny. And in that process, you will emanate an energy, a spiritual energy that will awaken itself. See, we must understand, we're dealing with left brain thinking. This world says, if I have to save you, I have to talk to you, I have to argue with you, I have to debate you so you can see my side so I can save you. No. See, you don't even exist. You are an avatar. You are a holographic projection. You are a figment of my imagination. You are Maya. And if I decide that you will change, then you will change. But your change is contingent upon my change. I must first be in the state that I want you to be in for you to change. That is how you manifest a different reality. One takes care of the other. Cartesian logic says, oh, no. You must talk to people and come directly in contact with them to help them. No, I can sit and meditate and help them. I can see them with money. I can see them in good health, and it will come to pass. Who taught you that I have to go talk to them? Who taught you that I have to lend them money? I can see in meditation them getting lots of money, and it will come to pass. if I observe certain rules. And then while I'm in that meditation, I'm going to see myself getting some money. I remember I went to a voodoo priest once, and he was doing the readings, and he was sacrificing the animals, which I wasn't cool about the animal sacrifice thing. Now I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Let us not kill the animals. And then he said, he did the reading while he was doing the ritual. He says, oh my God, the goddess favors you. I said, the goddess who? The goddess of riches and money. I said, really? He says, yes. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to ask her for something for me because she likes you. I said, oh, so you're exploiting your connection to me. Okay, I get it, you know, I get it. So I want you to understand how powerful you are and what you're dealing with. That these things that you see around you that's going on, these so-called obstructions that Sekert has put into your way, it's merely for you to awaken your spiritual power, and you chose it. You asked for it. No one else asked for it. You did. You asked for it in your reality. I remember my mut, which is the Kemetic word for mother. Whenever I would have problems, I would complain to her. And they were usually dealing with film, like my production. Something didn't go right on the set and all that. And she used to say this, you chose that field. You chose that field. And she was so right, and I had to shut up. I said, yeah, you're right. I could have gotten into something simpler. I wanted to be a filmmaker. She says, okay, now be quiet. So you asked for it. The same way as your children are born through you, they asked to be born through you. They wanted to be born through you. So treat them right. They didn't have to come through you. They had to come to somebody else. I was like, God, why did I have to come through my family line? There were so much problems in my family. And my good friend, she's in London, she said, you know, you are an overachiever. You're a workaholic. I said, yeah, well, what does that have to do with anything? You wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for what happened to you in your family. I said, oh. She says, you wouldn't have gone into the priesthood if it wasn't for what happened to your family. I said, oh yeah, that's right. So in a way, I asked for all of that so that I could come into the realization of who I am. And then I went to God and I said, God, you know, I don't know about this priest thing or teaching thing. I don't know if this is for me. God says, no, you better teach. God said, you ain't getting out of this. You asked for it. You said you wanted to be a priest. And I was like, I did? Did I? Oh, okay. I must have then. I don't recall it. Of course, your memory is wiped, which is an issue we will deal with in another video because that's a problem in and of itself. You don't want to keep your memory being wiped with every incarnation. That is a real issue. You want to. I am so lucky, thank God, that I can remember my last life and the life before that. I can vividly remember it. I even went to the library, the bookstore, to research who I was, and I found myself in the historical books. And I was delighted. And I had the picture there. It was a picture of me in that history book. And I went to the oracle. I was like, is this me? I asked the oracle, is this me? And the oracle said, yeah. And I was like, I don't believe you. I don't believe in this reincarnation stuff. I don't believe this. So I had to go to another priest, right? So I went to the priest. He says, I have an office on Fifth Avenue where I do homeopathy and all that. Come down to my office. So I took all the books. I said, okay, so I may be this historical figure. And I bought all these books. I can see they have an image of me. And the oracle seemed to say, yes, that's you. And Sekert said it is me. But I want you to tell me. He said, all right. Put his cloth down, took out his oracle cards, did the I-ching reading. He says, yep, it's you. I was like, oh, yep, it's you. Now, get some proper books and research more. Because the books I had, is little thin books. He was like, no, they're bigger books and more information about you out there than these little thin books. Get some better books. But I was like, oh, whoa. And I tell you, it went for about a year. I had really problems with it. I was still like trying to grapple with this whole reincarnation, rebirth thing. I said, but is it me? And then the more I researched it, the more it was exact match. I love bugs. And back then he was a bug collector. I was like, oh crap. I am heavily into astronomy. He was an astronomer. I was like, oh crap. He had relationship problems. I had relationship problems. I said, this is too much of a match. This is too much. This is too much. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to make a point. Those things that I lived out in the past life and that I liked, and those things that I did, I continue in this life because the emotions are still there. The connection are still there. You don't even know that the things you're doing now, you're only doing them because you had picked those habits up in the past life. You're just continuing it. You understand? So if you're into track, if you're into football and basketball, well, you did it in the past life, more than likely. That's why you like it. You don't realize that because you don't remember. They wipe your memory, man. It's so messed up that your memory is wiped. But when you get to the Ab level, Haru level, and the Shechem level, your memory won't be as wiped. You will retain some of the information from the past life. So keep that in mind. But we must also understand something. Although Sekert, and Sekert is also an older woman and can be seen as a man, Sekert. Sekert really relates to Ptah. You must also understand that not only your life is a continuation of the previous life, that the people that you meet are the same. The people that you encounter, you had experience with them in the past life as well. Don't think they're just new people you're dealing with. They're the same people in your past life. They may come into the form of different things. Your mother could have been your sister in the past life. You understand what I'm saying? Also keep in mind that although Sekert is destiny, Sekert is obstructions too. Sekert will put obstructions in your way for you to grow. And Sekert obstructions are not little light things. Like I'm sipping on this protein drink, I'm getting fruit coming up the straw, so I can't get the drink. That's a little bit of obstruction, right? No, Sekert obstruction is like a meteor coming and crashing on me. That's a Sekert obstruction. That's a major obstruction. When I do my oracle readings for people and I come up with Sekert, I'm like, oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Not the right cycle. Ooh, you're gonna be in a year of delays and limbo. It's, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And they're shocked. They're like, then I say, well, you know what? You're gonna grow spiritually in that year's time, all right? You're gonna acquire a lot of power. There is a movie called The Hurricane with Denzel Washington where he gets blamed for a murder he didn't commit, gets locked in jail for a certain period of time in solitary confinement. That's a Sekert challenge, man. So I went to my high priest and said, I gotta ask you a question about the hurricane. He went to prison a long time for a crime he didn't commit. He was in solitary confinement. And my high priest said, And he's going to come out a very powerfully spiritual person. I said, oh, okay. Just checking. Just checking what Secker gives you in return for all of that challenge, you know. And I know. Oh, then how do we have more people alive ever in history? Wow. According to whom? And in whose reality? Whose reality are you talking about? You understand what I'm saying? Because you're playing out your reality. It's a subjective experience. I don't exist. I am merely an avatar that you're interacting with. Understand? So keep that in mind. We have to purge ourselves of that Western thinking, you know? And sometimes we're not ready for the answers. The answers are very, very tough to digest. I told you when I found out who I was in a past life, it took me a year to process that information. And I still have books on myself that I have not read because I'm like, man, that's too deep. I'm reading stuff and I was like, I don't want to go. I don't know if I want to go too deep and all this stuff. It bothers me going there because there's some tragedy in there. You know, there's some tragedy. I'm like, I gotta do shadow work and be ready for that. Because if you don't do your shadow work and you don't integrate, you're going to repeat everything. You're going to keep hanging on to things. You're going to keep attaching to things and keep incarnating and dealing with those same issues and those problems over and over and over again. And you don't want to do that. And the worst off, if you don't explore your destiny and you don't do it right, then they're going to send you back to do it again. And it's going to be a more difficult challenge. So when you get that destiny, do it. Follow through. And say, all right, this is my destiny reading. I am going to, let's say, for example, your destiny reading is Oser Hetep. You must learn to be impartial, not to be emotional, not to assign a quality to things, to rise to a higher level. Can you do that in this lifetime? You know? That's a very high calling for a destiny, Oser Hetep, you know? That means you have to do major life transformation. Aren't we all one consciousness? Yes, we are. 5D. In 5D, we are, yes. But you, as God, first and foremost, manifested yourself. You called yourself into being. And then you said, I am alone. There's no one here. Therefore, I cannot have an experience, and I want to experience myself. So I will create another. From the one became the two. And then you look back upon yourself and you said, oh, this is what I am. I am now two. But I want to explore more. But now I have an experience because I can interact with myself. But let me create another version. So the two became the three, the Holy Trinity. And then from there, you went crazy. You started creating all things and you created the individuality that we see before us. And you created people. And you asked us, may I place my consciousness within your physical being so I may experience the 4D reality? And we said, yes. Place your consciousness in my being so you can experience 4D reality. And then God said, and may I explore a theme too? May I give you a theme to explore? And you agreed to explore it. And you said, yes. And thus began the objective realm. The objective realm is the world of things that are individualized. The subjective realm is the realm of just God by himself, with nothing to interact with. That's the subjective realm. So you need to understand that. Very good questions. So keep in mind when you encounter those obstructions, those difficulties, you got to say, I asked for it. This is what I chose to experience, and this life is my destiny. This is the reality that I chose to experience among an infinite number of realities. I chose this one. It may seem bad, but I think, to be honest with you, there are even worse realities you could be experiencing. Worse. You could have got onto an entire planet that was enslaved by aliens. You could have got incarnated onto a planet that was hit by a meteor and killed half the population. The other half is starving. You could have incarnated into a planet that had zombies eating everybody. I'm not kidding you. That's not a joke. There's an infinite number of realities to experience. So you think this is bad, go talk to the ones that are living on the planet with zombies and see how they feel. They'd be like, what, racism? Well, I'll deal with that. You ever deal with flesh-eating zombies? Oh, Philip, let me ask you a question, Philip. It's interesting that you said that. That's a very interesting thing you said. You have to look at time periods you're talking about, because religions change or spirituality changes through certain time periods, certain cultures, dynasties. But the one great thing that we've always had was we were very right brain, integrated brain thinkers. And what the right brain does is a process called synthesis. Synthesis is the ability to take things that seem contradictory and bring them together harmoniously. And we've always had that ability, always. So I want you to think about that. So contradiction is not something that we engaged in a lot. You know what I mean? It was never, and I told Philip, let me answer your question by saying this example. And I gave this example in the previous video. The Egyptologists went and saw these different gnomes in Egypt. There was a gnome of Amen, and there was a gnome of Ra. Thus, they came together and became Amen-Ra, one deity. Well, the Egyptologists thought that the priest of Amen and the priest of Ra were arguing with each other. They couldn't get along. And then they finally came to the agreement, let's just combine our gnomes or our temples into one Amen-Ra. No, that's not how it's done. That's not how it's done in cultures with right-brained people. It was all, the deities represent energy systems, alchemy. So they looked and they said, Amen is the state of the hidden. And from the state of the hidden comes the energy, Ra. So you have the Amen-Ra. And from the Ra comes the order, Ma'at, daughter of Ra. So the combination of Amen and Ra was not to appease the two temples who contradicted each other and conflicting. It was that we know that from one state, the state of no-thingness, everything emanates. Keep that in mind. Because that contradiction thing is a left-brain Western concept. See, they engage in the Hegelian dialectic. It's either right, it's either wrong. It's either left, it's either right. It's either male or female. It's either material or immaterial. They don't understand the nuances of things. They're very polarized. And you see, the Hegelian dialectic is flawed, big time. You have your thesis and your antithesis. So they would say, okay, well, you have the thesis, antithesis, and in the middle, you can have your synthesis or your resolution, right? But you just set yourself up for a big failure because you have your thesis, your antithesis, which is the anti-thesis or the anti-aspect. You've said now that there is an element that is against your premise. We never saw things that way. Nothing comes against you. Nothing opposes you. It's all one. It's oneness. It's one. It's an aspect, a half of the different one thing. And without the combination, you cannot have wholeness. But they tend to break it up and say, you're good and you're bad. You oppose this because they have to think that way because the left brain only thinks that way. It's segregative principle. It names, it labels, it defines. That's what it has to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's only something wrong with that when it's used for things that it's not supposed to be used for. Like trying to decide if abortion is right. Trying to decide what morality is and what truth is. It can't do that. It doesn't know how to do that. It can only say thesis and antithesis. Well, you set yourself up for failure because you're already saying that this thing is against you. We never saw it that. We said yin and the yang. One complements the other. They're halves of a whole. I want to thank you guys for attending today and listening to this broadcast. This is Kasank Ma Keperu, Brother Q, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.